everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and Ash is over there, and that makes this Circles and Squares, the PlayStation podcast, on our first show of 2021. So happy New Year to everyone out there. And Kate, welcome to the show. How are you feeling? It's the new year. Are you ready to go? Ready to start 2020 strong, right?
I hope so. It's, I don't know if you can tell. I mean, if you're on video, you can definitely tell we're having a little bit of a transition period. We're both in the process of moving, so you can tell James's setup is very professional over there. And I don't even think I have a webcam this one because it's in a box somewhere.
Yeah, you're going to be a lovely still image on this one. But yeah, I'm here. I'm living amongst chaos. This is like the tidiest part of my house right now, this blank wall. And there's like boxes everywhere. Like I mentioned, Ash is over there. She's unpacking a bunch of stuff. So hopefully it's not any kind of noises going on. But please forgive us with that kind of thing today. Next episode, we should be completely back to normal, I would hope. And hopefully, Kate, you're back on video because I'm making eye contact with your little image right now, and it's not as fun.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when I stop blinking, huh?
It's kind of weird when you stop blinking 20 minutes into the episode. Yeah, that's a bit weird. But we'll make do. We'll make do. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get into the show today, though. You can now rate our show on Spotify, which would really help us grow, as we always say with any kind of rating and whatnot. It's just really simple. I think it's a 5-star rating system they have too. There's not like you don't have to write anything. You don't have to make any complicated decisions. Just click 5 stars, leave us a good rating, and help us grow the show. That's be great. And the other thing is on YouTube, I noticed that over half of our viewers do not subscribe to the channel. So if you're watching this right now on YouTube and you love our excellent quality setup here with no video on Kate's end, just subscribe. And I promise you, next time you see a video pop up, it's going to be a lot better. So yeah, those 2 things would be great. And as always, thank you so much for those who follow the show. Kate, of course, we're going to start the show off with the games we're playing, and then the second half of today's show will be our 2022 predictions for games this year. But one thing we did miss, as we didn't have an episode last week, is there was the announcement of PlayStation Plus for January 2022. And we need to pick some PlayStation Plus games to play for the next show. So why don't you tell the listeners what we got to choose from? It's a good-ass month.
Yeah, so January is starting off with a bang, and I think we say this almost every month. It's like, oh, it's going to be a good month this time. So that's fortunate for us. But for January, we have available to us on PS4 and PS5, we've got Persona 5 Strikers. I think that's the one we've both got our eye on. There's, of course, Dirt 5 and Deep Rock Galactic, which has the best tagline of any game, in my opinion. Danger, darkness, dwarves.
It's up there. I've heard that game's actually really fun, to be honest. I had a couple friends actually hitting me up to play some of that the other day, but I just haven't had time. But I think...
It's a shame for me on that one, is that's the one I definitely pick. I've got a couple people, one person in particular who's big into Deep Rock, and he's a joy to play with. So I was hoping
big Deep Rock fan.
Yeah, he's
fan
gotten
for
deep
years.
into Deep Rock, if you will. And he's been bugging me to play, and I was really excited about the idea of like, oh, I have it now, I can play, but it's not cross-platform. So if that was the case, Deep Rock would definitely be my game. But I think it's something you want a group to play with, from what I understand, because it's a lot of really good team coordination. So I think that knocks me out of it, unfortunately, because they are all PC players.
Unfortunate. Well, for me, I'm so excited to try Persona Strikers. I have no interest in Dynasty Warriors like at all. But the fact that it's Persona, the fact that it's going to add to the story of those characters and give me some more of that music, I'm excited to dive into that. And I think once I'm unpacked a little bit more, I might even try some of that later tonight or tomorrow. We'll see. But any chance of Persona, that's good.
I think we're going to double up on this month then, because that's definitely my pick is Strikers. I would have preferred, I think, like you said, Dynasty Warriors doesn't do anything for me. I would have preferred one of the rhythm games over this one, but whatever. Even if I only play for a couple hours, the music's going to be bopping, and I'm 100% okay with any kind of Persona content. I will play like Persona graphing calculator if I have to.
That actually sounds like, if that came out, that would be like a must buy just on the premise of like how weird that is.
As long as River's in the desert, it's going to be bopping at some point, I'm in.
Nice. Okay. Well, we'll report back on those games on our next episode. And for now, let's start the show with the games we've been playing. And Kate, you've played something I've absolutely never heard of. Oh Hi, but it's spelt in Leet. So I mean, I'm confused. Please tell me what this is.
Yeah, so you know I'm a real elite gamer when I'm playing my elite game. Yeah, so Oh Hi has been my go-to, like, addiction, like, oh my god, if you thought Slay the Spire was addicting, may I introduce you to Oh Hi. So it's kind of just a cute little game. I've been playing a lot of other, like, long RPGs that I just don't really feel like I'm at the point to talk about yet. I'm making fantastic progress in my Bloodborne playthrough that I'm going through, but we can save those for another time. So for now, I've been playing Oh Hi, and it's kind of become my, like, I have it open in a tab at all times, and I just consistently go through and play a couple games. So it's on browser, it's on mobile. I don't think it's on any kind of console. But basically, if you picture like a Sudoku kind of setup. But it's simpler than that. It's like simple Sudoku, but it is so incredibly addicting. So
Hmm.
it's just a grid, and you get to start out with red and blue squares. And you can choose your size. It can go from 4 squares, which is, like, incredibly beginner, and it goes up to 12, which gets pretty complicated. I so far like to play the 8s. Sometimes I dabble in a 10.
When the
Uh,
time is right, you dabble.
when the time is right. But basically, you get these squares, and it just has some simple rules. It's essentially a logic puzzle. And so if you're doing an 8 by 8 grid, for example, you want the board to be finished so that there are in every row and every column 4 red and 4 blue squares.
Okay.
Very simple. And you start out with the board partially completed, and you have to fill it in based off of, the restrictions you can see. And so it's one of those funny games where it sounds a little complicated. It's hard to describe, but if the second you look at it and start playing, it is so incredibly simple. So
I'm playing
you just
right
need
now while I listen to this, and I'm
yeah,
really
you just need
confused, but
well, you just need 4 of each color, and
yeah.
then, there's other restrictions to make it easier, so you can't have 3 in a row of the same color. So then
Right.
like, you see 2 blues together, and you're like, "Oh, there has to be a red on the end of that." And then you're constantly just putting in little ones, kinda like Sudoku, where you're like, "Oh, only a 0 could go in that one box. Now because that 0's there, it means a 0 can't be in this box." And so then you're, like, process of elimination kind of figuring it out.
That's
And this
interesting.
game has that sort of idea to it, but it's just simpler because it's just 2 colored squares. So
I mean, I played for about 30 seconds, and it seems to me, based on that and what you're describing, it seems almost like a mix of Sudoku and Minesweeper
in
in a way,
Minesweeper.
you know?
This game will not explode on you, though. It is very calm. But yeah, so you 4 of each color in a row. If you're doing 8s, it's half and half. So 8s is 4 and 4, 6s would be 3 and 3. You
Hmm.
can't have 3 in a row. They must alternate. No rows can be the same. So they have to be different configurations. When you get down to it, it's like, oh, these rows are the same except for these 2. So I know I'd have to reverse the last 2 squares to fill in or whatnot. And that is the entire game. But it is the kind of thing where I have it open in my browser whether I'm, like, watching a YouTube video or if, like, I'm eating or, definitely never in class. And and you just sort of fill it in, and it's the perfect level of, like, it's engaging, but not too much thinking that I can't also be focused on what I'm listening to. And it has become the equivalent of, like, when you're, like, sitting in class and you have, like, your notebook out and you kinda just doodle on it, and it's just, like, something to fidget with while you're paying attention to something. This has 100% become that game for me,
Hmm.
and they fly by so quickly, and I can genuinely sit for, like, 2 hours and just do oh highs and be like, "Oh shit, I have to go to bed." Like, I
Oh,
don't know
hi.
what
Oh,
it is.
shit.
Oh hi, oh shit. Yeah, it's like, "Oh hi, it's morning now." Um And it's just so cute. So if you need a fiddly game that kind of doesn't make you feel guilty because technically it's logic and math and you're getting smarter as you play, um, check out Oh Hi in Cool Elite Speak.
That's cool. You know what? I'm definitely gonna keep this up on a browser myself. This looks like I could get into
Yeah,
this for sure. I'm a
I
huge
just
Sudoku guy, so I mean, this is anything like
yeah,
that or adjacent to that. I'm definitely like willing to give a
it
shot.
is it is adjacent to that. It's like a simplified version, but it's almost kind of nicer for that aspect, and you just, like, can blow through games. I will tell you, the 12s get pretty intense. There is, like, a
Hmm.
nice hint system, or if you ever get stuck, you can just get a quick hint and move on. But if you wanna do no hints on a 12, it is
Damn.
pretty satisfying.
Is 12 the biggest you can go?
12 is the biggest you can go. On the at least in browser, that's what I've been using. I haven't tried
Hmm.
the app out, but
Yeah.
12 does appear to be so far the biggest challenge. But you never know where it's going to go in the future.
Cool. I'm in. Thank you for enlightening me and telling me what this is, because I saw you put this on our outline for the show, and I was like,
Yes.
I've never heard of this. And usually I look into the stuff you put a little bit just so I'm familiar. But this one I was like,
Mhm.
again, moving, so much going on. I'm just gonna wait and see what this is, and I'm pleasantly surprised. That sounds like a good game,
Yeah. It is amazing.
honestly.
Like, I close my eyes and I see just little red and blue squares, and it's wonderful.
Nice. Well, let me tell you about what I've been playing, Kate. I've played a couple things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the Gunk, which is a game. It's an action platformer coming from Image and Form, and this is the studio that does the SteamWorld games, which I don't think I've talked about too much on the show, but they're some of my favorite games that I've played on the Switch specifically. They're kind of like all different genres, but the SteamWorld kind of had this overarching like world they built with robots and kind of steampunk stuff. But the Gunk is Image and Form's first attempt at a 3D game, and so it's not a SteamWorld game, but it's I think it's more like a test of what they could do in a 3D space before they do. I think there's that next SteamWorld game coming out which is 3D, so maybe this is like their test for that. And I think this game is, it was fine, but I wouldn't say I didn't really start the year off with a bang playing the Gunk. Let's just say it like that. So it reminded me a lot of Luigi's Mansion, because the main mechanic that you use is that you have a vacuum cleaner attached to your arm, and the whole premise is that you're these two, they're kind of like scrappers or junk collectors. There's these two girls that it's a very like space exploration type of thing. Like you crash landed on this new planet, and they're basically there to try and collect resources and just collect stuff to sell, because that's how they earn their income. But it turns out, like on this planet you crash on, that there's not a lot to collect in terms of what they're looking for, but they end up finding all this weird kind of mystery that unravels around where did this kind of like goopy gunk that covers the planet come from. And as you start kind of sucking it up, it reinvigorates the life of the planet, and sort of the nature comes back the more of it you remove. And there's a really strong message in the game about like environmentalism and like taking
Okay.
care of your planet, which I think is like the strongest part of the game, to be honest, because it's it's a
Mhm.
little ham-fisted at times. It really is. It's not exactly subtle about the message it's trying to get across, in terms of like, hey, we shouldn't be extracting resources from our planet and like running it into the ground and getting rid of all the wildlife. But you're basically doing the opposite of that in this game, and cleaning it up. And to the game's credit, I think that the vacuuming and like the sucking of the gunk it's actually pretty satisfying to clear out an area and like clean it all up and grow the plants back, because especially too, the environments end up looking pretty nice when you do so. But I think that where the game really runs into some troubles is there just isn't a lot of variety in terms of mechanics and whatnot. Like the gunk, like when you're sucking it with a vacuum, that mechanic doesn't really get built upon or changed in really throughout
Right.
the game.
You don't start with, like, a Hoover and upgrade to a Dyson, you
No,
just
no, there's no
no.
Dyson. There is an
No.
upgrade system. Like the way they do it is kind of cool. You actually have a scanner similar to a game like Metroid Prime, where you're going through the environment, and you can, whenever you see a new type of plant or a new like piece of technology, or really anything you run into, you can scan it, get a bit of lore, and then when you scan enough, you kind of build up this experience bar, which unlocks different upgrades you can get, and then you spend currency and different resources you find while you're exploring on those upgrades. But the upgrades themselves, like, they feel really flat. I don't think you actually need any of them in order to beat the game. Like, one of them is like running, I think that should just be a default control. It's a big pain in the ass when you can't run for the first hour and a half of the game because you haven't saved up enough resources to buy the running shoes. Like, that's just kind of annoying, right? And then a lot of the upgrades are like, there's some light combat stuff, and there's some of the gunk can spit out these little alien guys who will chase you around, but they're just so easy to beat that the upgrades they give you to kind of, you can upgrade and get this beacon that draws all the enemies towards it, so they don't really attack you, but they're just so easy to kill that I just found myself not really using it. Stuff like that. So I like the idea of what they had and how they implemented like
Mhm.
unlocking the upgrades, but I just didn't really find them really worth it, which is unfortunate, because I think that the premise is stronger than the game here, right? I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And so, and the other thing too is like, as I like the message of the story with the environmentalism stuff, but I didn't really buy the writing a lot, which surprised me, because I find the SteamWorld games are actually some of the more like funny, well-written games, the characters are usually pretty enjoyable to like watch them talk back and forth. Not that there's a lot of dialogue, but in this game it suffers from that problem we talked about with Days Gone, where the main character, she's always talking to herself like, I gotta get up there now, I wonder how I'm gonna do that, or stuff like that. And she's always talking like, I guess I have to find a different way to go. And I thought like, well, obviously I have to find a different way to go. You'd never say that to yourself out loud in real life, right? And then just the banter back and forth between the characters, it just feels a little bit, I guess I just didn't buy the chemistry. Yeah, it feels a little unnatural.
Yeah.
Not the greatest.
Feels a little bit forced. Feels a little bit, it sounds like it's a little bit of one of those things where like it becomes obvious that, the dialogue is for the player and not for the character in game. And so that can take you a little bit out of the immersion. But it's funny, I'm looking this game up as you're talking because I'm unfamiliar with the Gunk. And first of all, the actual game is quite visually stunning to look at. I think I can see totally the environmental message coming through, and that's wonderful. But PSA to everybody, if you are on Steam, this game is not on Steam. And if you search the Gunk, you will get this weird flash game about a snail. And I spent the first couple minutes of you talking kind of expect, like, that's what I thought it was. And you're like, you get a vacuum? Like, okay, you're a snail. I guess you could have a vacuum. It doesn't seem like it's in these pictures, but that's okay. And you're like, yeah, and you're a girl with a vacuum. Like, okay, this snail's evolved. It's weird he hasn't mentioned it's a snail. Don't get confused with Gunk. This is the Gunk, and it's a totally different game.
This is the Gunk. Right. Yeah, I played it on Game Pass, so I think it's actually only on Xbox right now, or it might be on Epic as well, I think, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, the game itself, it's only 4 or 5 hours long, so I ended up beating it getting to the end. If it was any longer than that, I think I actually might have played less and given up on it earlier, just because it doesn't like have a lot going for it mechanically that's really interesting. Like, it's got some light puzzle solving. You gotta suck up a bomb from the roof and throw it over onto something else, stuff like that, like just different things with the vacuum, but it's never overly complicated. And I feel like about when you hit the halfway point, they don't really add anything new to it, so you're pretty much solving some very similar puzzles for the back half of the game, which it is what it is, right? I think anything 4 or 5 hours is always worth just finishing off because it's so easy to get through. But I wouldn't say you should run out and get into this one if you're not overly interested in it, for sure. But as an Image and Form fan, I was excited to try it, and I'm glad I did, because now it's giving me some context of when they released this, like the 3D SteamWorld game, of how I can compare it and what they've learned from this. So that's that. But the second game I want to talk about, and I think we're gonna maybe tag team this one a little bit, is I finally beat Cuphead, which is a game that I have been wanting to play for, since it came out, but it was just one of those that I put off, and then finally it was on sale on the PSN, so picked it up. And my God, I'm glad I did, because I love Cuphead. I think this game is already in the running for my 2022 Game of the Year. Obviously, we're a long way from from that. But now how far did you get into Cuphead? Just so we can put it out there.
Yeah, so this is to my failing. I never beat Cuphead. I played it co-op. And I think we got about halfway through the game, if I had to guess. And we honestly found that by the end of it, it was actually easier to play single player than it was to play co-op, because it just doubled, the way it scales the boss's health. We just found that if one of us was having a magnificent run and the other one wasn't, it was just easier. So I think looking at it now, we were at Beppy the Clown, and he was a real bitch. And I think we never kept playing since then. So I think that's, although, what's weird is I feel like I remember fighting the dragon. Can you do them out of order?
There's not necessarily an order. The game is kind of has different sections. So within each section, you can do whatever order you want. But you have to complete an entire island. Like, there's different, I think there's 3 different or maybe 4 different areas you go to. And so once you complete everything in the area, you can move on. So I think the dragon may have been in the same area as the clown.
Okay. So I think there's 3 areas. I think we did the first, I don't know. I'm looking at it here. I've got a list up, and we definitely beat the first area. The second area, I remember beating everyone except for Beppy. But then in the third area, I remember fighting the pirate ship guys and the Medusa with the octopus. So maybe we did get past Beppy eventually. Yeah. And maybe, I think based off of this, I think there's 4 bosses that I don't recognize. So we were actually, like, devastatingly close to beating the game, and this is a
Unfortunate.
failing on my part. I need to go back and
Yeah, it
redo
is.
Cuphead.
I am. I mean, yeah, you really should, because this game is great. I don't think that I can think of a better boss rush game that I mean ever really. I know a lot of people don't really like the run and gun levels as much, and I can agree with that completely. I think
Mhm.
those are definitely the weaker part of the game. Although I still had fun, like, doing some of those here and there, like as a nice little sprinkled in difference of just than just
Yeah,
fighting
I
bosses.
what's funny is I feel like the run and gun were definitely the weaker part, but I felt like they were really good for co-op in comparison to
Mm,
the boss fights being harder on co-op, so that kind of slightly, raised it up in our perspective, but I agree, it's definitely the boss fights that are the highlight of this.
yeah, well, absolutely right. And I mean, the animation on these bosses. I mean, everyone knows Cuphead for the animation, but we'd be foolish not to mention it here. I just can't believe how this game looks. Like, I've never seen anything like this before, in terms of, like, it literally looks like an old style cartoon, and there's no other way to put it. Like, that, it's incredible the way they were able to do it. I don't think there's anything that I've ever seen with this unique of an art style in a game, and it's just it was really mind blowing. And I think as I was playing the game, it almost became like I was used to looking at it, so I was less impressed as I went through in some aspects. But I mean, just any time you could put any one of these levels in front of someone that's never seen Cuphead before, and I think their jaw would hit the floor.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're really creative too, like, a lot of the bosses are, like, just absolutely phenomenal. Like, I remember fighting that one, and it's like she's like a big, like, or like a castle made of, like, dessert, and she throws
Mm-hmm.
desserts at you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so ridiculous, and you go from fighting that to fighting, like, that like, the first boss is like a carrot that throws, like, root vegetables at you and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and, like, it's just so silly and so, like, wacky, and it works so well, and like you said, like, anything I'm looking at these pictures just remembering, "Oh, I remember that boss, I remember that boss," and, like, the way that it's got that kind of, like, grain like, not grainy, but that film quality, like,
Yeah,
style to it as
yeah.
well, like, everything is so incredibly, like, handcrafted, and there wasn't a single time that the game didn't run phenomenally, like, it is the most
Mm-hmm.
polished game to pick up Cuphead.
Totally, yeah. And so we talked about the run and gun levels, which are, like, traditional side scrolling type stuff. We talked about, there's the normal levels are just boss fights with Cuphead on foot, but there's also like some plane levels as well, which are side scrolling, but this time you're
Mhm.
like in a plane, and it's almost like a like bullet hell type stuff you're going through. Not that, I mean, all the levels are bullet hell, but but
Mhm.
especially the plane ones. And I think actually some of the plane ones were my favorite. Like, there's the one where you fight the genie guy, which I had
The
a lot of fun
gen
with. Yeah, and then
yeah.
there's another one too, like the what was it?
There's the
Um,
bird in the birdhouse.
the birdhouse one. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one. I think that might have been my favorite boss in the whole game. Actually, I really enjoyed fighting that one. And there's another one too. Like, I think the hardest level for me, and this is maybe light spoilers, but this isn't a new game. There's one level where you're fighting this honey bee queen, and in this level, instead of moving side to side, it moves up. So you're like
Okay.
climbing this tower, and doing some light platforming while also avoiding all her attacks, and everything going on there. And I found that level to be really challenging. I got stuck on it for quite a while. But like anything else, you get over it eventually, right? And I think this is a take of mine. I think is helping me refine my opinion on Souls, Kate, because
Ah.
well, I can relate. We can relate this to Souls, right? And
Yes.
I think what I love about Cuphead is that it takes the learning the mechanics, because I mean, people say the Souls, right? You like learning the mechanics, overcoming the challenge, and that's how I felt about
Mhm.
Cuphead. Like, almost every single one of these bosses, I think, like, maybe the one or two of the first ones I beat on, like, my first or second try, but a lot of them take, like, 5 to 10 or more tries to beat,
Or absolutely more,
or
yeah,
more,
it's
yeah,
not
or
an easy
more.
game.
It's not an easy game. And but the thing is, like, I really enjoyed learning the mechanics and learning, how to dodge each of these bosses attacks. And I think the reason for that is Cuphead just gets you in and out so quickly
Mhm.
into the boss
Yes.
fights. Like, you die and you just click restart, and I mean, on the PS5 with the SSD, it's literally like 1 second and you're restarting the fight. And I just love that, because I can practice over and over again and actually develop that skill. Whereas I think, like, if I had a run back like in the Souls games and I had to kind of
Mhm.
faff around for a few minutes, it would have been a lot less encouraging to fight the boss to just, like, clean me out in 30 seconds again and again and again. And so, like, I think I've kind of identified it as, like, if it's I don't like, Cuphead is a hard game, but I like the fact that you just get to repeat it instantly until you go in again and again. And I think that is exactly what made this game just so addicting to me. Like, oh, one more run. Like, let me just try and fight this guy one more time, you know? And I think that's the best setup for games like this, if they want to make like challenging fights.
Yeah, and it's funny, when you first said you beat Cuphead, obviously I was excited for you, but I thought it was kind of funny, like, I am usually the one that's like, "Oh, I play these tough games on
Yeah.
purpose," and, like, that's normally my style, and you typically tend to prefer more, like, story or relaxing kind of experience, and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you beat Cuphead," and I failed to beat Cuphead, so,
Yeah.
points to you on this one.
Man, I'll tell you though, like this game, I mean, I was talking to our good friend Mr. Del Monster, and he's beat Cuphead as well, and he's a Souls guy too, so he likes the challenge, and I think I actually got through the like the main story like not story, but like the main levels of Cuphead faster than he did. But then on the last level, you go and fight like the final boss, and there's like I guess there's like two final bosses sort of, and I was stuck on those for like as long as it took me for the entire rest of the game. They were so tough. And like there's this one, it's a casino, and you're like, you roll your dice to almost like see which spaces you land on, and I mean that determines like which bosses you fight. And if you roll like 1 1 1, you're fighting multiple guys in a row, whereas if you roll like 2 or 3, then you can kind of skip over some of the levels. So but your health is continuous among all of it, and so it's almost like a gauntlet you have to go through. And that just was like so tough, because if you ran into one of the ones you're not quite as good at, you can basically end your run and then you have to fight the final boss after that, and it's just like, my god, what a challenge. But
Right, so there's a little bit of RNG to that one, just based off of
I mean,
what you roll.
you can kind of roll if you have a good timing, because I guess one thing we haven't talked about as well is there's a parry mechanic in this game where
Yeah, there's a parry mechanic.
yeah. So enemies' bullets are coming at you, but occasionally you'll see a pink bullet or like something pink in some of the backgrounds in the environments. And whenever you see pink in Cuphead, it means you can parry it, and you can you gain like a little bit of a special meter from that. And so where was I going with that? Oh yeah, with rolling the dice, you can you parry the dice, and you can kind of choose what number you're rolling on that boss, but it's tough to time sometimes, so it's not like you're guaranteed to land where you want to land. Anyway, it was a great challenge, and I thoroughly enjoyed playing Cuphead.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is Cuphead has an overworld as well, which you're exploring like each of the areas, and I was so thankful that they did that instead of just having like a list, like, oh, here's the next level. I really enjoyed going around those little environments. There's a little store you can buy some different gun upgrades with. There's like a machine gun, and there's a spread shot and a homing shot, and these different things you can get. And then but the overworlds are also like, there's some little shortcuts you can take too. Like usually when you beat a boss, it opens up a little bit more of the path so you can go to the next sort of area. But there's a couple times you can like go behind a waterfall and stuff. Like it's just kind of cool.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like which Mario games? I think it's the SNES one, and it's got
Super
the
Mario
same kind of overworld, and like depending on what you do, like you kind of open like little like different paths depending on, like, some levels have like multiple ways to beat it, and so you get a different path, and like it reminded me of that kind of like old school map sort of style, which I think fit Cuphead really nicely. And I want to go back to your point about like trying bosses over and over again, and I think it's really interesting, the Souls comparison, because I think they're going for different things.
Yeah.
Because Cuphead is supposed to feel like it's like an arcadey style kind of game, right? Like it's supposed to feel like, okay, one more, and you keep going until you get it. Whereas Souls is funny because it intentionally doesn't do that. And it is off-putting at times. It's really frustrating to have to like, run past a bunch of enemies to get back to the boss, and it can be annoying because you just want to, try again. And they're going for more of an atmospheric kind of thing, and it's funny how I remember when they were making Demon Souls, they with the PS5, the remaster, and they were timing very intentionally to figure out how long they wanted the "you died" like death screen to be on, because the PS5 would just instantly load you. Would load it too quick. So they were actually like having meetings and conversations at Blue Point, from if from what I've read, they were having meetings about like, well, how long is the "you died" screen, because we want it to sit and resonate with people for a second. So they were like planning that out, which is kind of funny. And so obviously in a game like Cuphead, it's like, no, like get back in.
Yeah, get it as quick as you can.
So
Yeah.
it's just a different approach and
Totally,
for
yeah.
different reasons. So
Totally. And
um,
neither approach is better or worse. Like there's definitely the Souls games have a way more atmosphere and they're like
yeah,
that's their intention,
but
right? I'm just mean for me when it comes to a challenging
yeah,
experience, this is
absolutely.
the format that I probably prefer.
What I find interesting the most though is in Sekiro, most of the bosses, I think there's 1 or 2 that are not the case, but the
Mm.
very vast majority of the bosses, they give you the checkpoint right at the door, and so
Mhm.
you just go back in. So it doesn't automatically
Yeah.
load you into the fight like Cuphead would, but you're right there on the doorstep, there's nothing to fight, and you just get to walk in, and so they've kind
True.
of bridged that. I think maybe it, doesn't fit Sekiro as much as it fits the other Souls games to do the run back, so that's a consideration there. But I think they also took into consideration as well, like, yeah, people kind of get frustrated and so like we're gonna put it in when we feel like it's important,
Right,
but
right,
it
right.
doesn't necessarily have to be every single boss. And so I think you're definitely not in the minority of liking just that quick pacing and a little bit more of like player consideration on that part.
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
It's an
and so
interesting debate anyway, and I think yeah, it just depends on what kind of game it is, right? But
Mhm,
yeah,
absolutely, but the other thing I gotta say about Cuphead and the dying is I love that it gives you at the end after you fail, it tells you how far you made it into the boss because the Cuphead bosses, do not have health bars if I remember correctly.
no, they don't. They don't. They just change forms.
They
Every one of
don't.
them will have a few different forms, and as you make it to like, okay, they're a
Exactly.
quarter dead, so now they're gonna change up their attack patterns and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. They do the phases, but you don't actually get to tell how close you were, and so then when you die, he runs across the little, like, kinda like a progress bar sort of thing, but he
Yeah.
runs across it and plants the flag on how close you are to the end, and every now and again, you get one of those times where, like, you cannot see the end of the bar from where you put the flag down, and you knew, like, 2 more hits and you had it, and it's like, "Oh
Oh my
god,"
god,
and
it's
so
so painful. That happened to me on the final boss, Kate. The final
oh,
boss. I had made it and I was so excited and I died and I just saw that like the marker was like if it was at 99%, it might have been at like 99.5% dead. Like I couldn't have been more crushed. I remember that. Like, oh
that's
my
funny.
god. Funny. But yeah, the progress bar is good. And I mean, I don't think you can really nitpick too much of Cuphead. It's just a
No.
great game. And if you've been like me and waited forever to play this, don't be like me anymore. Just go play it now and make a good choice, okay?
And definitely don't be like me and stop playing it partway through.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Well, I think, Kate, it's time to move into the second part of our show for today, which is a very exciting one and one that I mean, I would say I always look forward to it, but it is only our second time doing predictions on the show. For the new year. But at the start of every new year, we're making it a tradition, obviously, to do our predictions of what we think is going to happen in video games for the upcoming year. So this is our 2022 official Circles and Squares prediction episode, where we're going to go over what we think is going to happen in the games industry. And before we get into our predictions for this year, though, we need to go over and review what we thought would happen last year and see who won, because we put a bet on this, Kate, and you reminded me of this because you were the one who had the lovely job of going back and listening to our predictions from last year and seeing what we said. But we had a bet going on of whichever one of us scores more points on our predictions gets to choose one game that this year the other person has to play and get back to the other one on the show about. So
Mhm.
I really hope I win, but at the same time, I'd be interested to see what you pick for me. So it's gonna be fun. Do you have the list up right now? You wanna go
I
through what our predictions were?
I do have the list up, and I've also tallied the points.
Good. Okay.
So I know exactly, how this is gonna end up,
Okay.
and I'm twirling
I'm
my
excited.
mustache on
I'm
it.
excited
Um,
because I have no idea. This is my first time hearing our predictions since we made them, so I've completely forgotten what we said, and I'm ready to
well,
be really embarrassed at how badly we've done. So let's see.
we have not done amazing overall, but we had some fun predictions, and I think this is a great time if anyone wants to pause and go back and find that episode because it was actually quite entertaining to listen through. But James, I will give you the horrible choice of would you like your predictions first or my predictions
No, do me
first?
first. Do me first. I gotta
You
rip
first?
the band-aid.
Okay. Rub the Band-Aid. Let's see how many points you got. So I've tallied the points. You can argue if you think that things are worth different amounts of
Sure.
points, and maybe that will fluctuate. But you guessed your first prediction was that The Last of Us 2 will get a multiplayer with a lot of marketing. And
Hmm.
not only that, but it will also be revealed and nominated for Best Multiplayer at the Game Awards.
Damn.
So please enlighten me of how much Last of Us 2 multiplayer you've played in
Look,
2021.
God, there's been a lot of rumors flying around still about the Last of Us factions, but obviously
Yeah.
this is totally false. And so unfortunate though, because I think it could be really fun if it ever does come out.
Yeah, that's the thing about our predictions is every single one I kind of want to exist, but unfortunately they don't always. So that's not good. You did get a point on your next one. You guessed correctly that not only will Horizon Forbidden West be delayed to 2022, but also that Ragnarok would be.
Okay, all right.
And you were on point on this one. However, you were concerned that this might be a bit of a safe prediction. Because it was and it was true. So you said that if we win a tie because of this safe prediction, you would lose a tie.
Oh my God, why did I say that?
Let's see if that comes back to bite you in the ass.
Why did I say that? Okay, all right.
So your point. Your next one is my favorite prediction because it's absolutely hilarious and you got so fucked on it. But you said another PS4 game will be announced for PC. And you originally thought that it would be God of War. And then you backtracked, you went, nah, because it's Kratos. And Kratos is a quintessential PlayStation character. So you're like, no, it's not going to be God of War. It's going to be Bloodborne. And one of those two games did come to PC. Of course, it was God of War.
Goddamn.
So you get 0 points for that. And you also get the 0 bonus points. I told you that if Bloodborne Kart came out, you just won the whole thing. But
well,
unfortunately,
that was never going to happen. I mean,
unfortunately, that was never going to happen. Your next prediction, I think we agreed was maybe our favorite prediction. You thought that Astrobot would get a full game in 2022 or 2023. So not quite yet. But to tide us over in 2021, you thought perhaps it would get a game similar to that Mario Home Racing.
Oh, yeah, right.
And there could be a physical toy. You suggested either a Lego set or like one of those programmable robots.
That would be so cool, right? That's a total missed opportunity. A programmable Astrobot for your house.
That is a total missed opportunity. I also love the Lego set, but ironically, Amazon has announced in 2021 an Astro Home Robot Helper and monitor. It is named Astro. It has nothing to do with Astrobot. It is a bot named Astro, but it's announced. It hasn't come out, and it is still there for 0
And it's a
point.
0. Okay.
0. But you do get a second point on your final one. You thought Sony would acquire Bluepoint, and they did officially in 2021. So that lands you with a solid 2 points out of a potential 5.
That's actually not so bad. I'm okay with that.
Not so bad.
Okay, let's see how you did.
That's not so bad. So here's how I did. I guess first of all that Animal Crossing would get a direct competitor that defeats them as the ultimate town sim. Of course, we got no such thing.
No, there were a few games like that released though. There was Lake, and there was that new one that's coming out. We saw in the showcase. But they're never going to dethrone Animal Crossing, though.
I thought they might dethrone Animal Crossing. So that was a bit of a bold one.
It was hopeful. It was hopeful though.
It was hopeful. And I think I made it before Animal Crossing got a bunch of updates and support, and so people were kind of a little bit cold on some of the lack of like multiplayer features at the time. So, that didn't end up happening. But my second one, and I said maybe a half point for this, so you might have to to see if you think this is fair or not. But I said Epic's going to have a big year, and I said they're going to get a bunch more timed exclusives. And a phone app. So we didn't get a phone app, but they did get tons of timed exclusives. You asked if I had one in particular, and I guessed maybe Resident Evil Village, which wasn't true. It did have a bunch. It had Darkest Dungeon 2. It had Bunger Bunger Snacks, Mortal Shell, The Pathless, Kenna, Bridge of Spirits. So it did get tons of timed exclusives, but was I not specific enough?
No, I think the idea would be by timed exclusives you meant like exclusive on PC, right? Like not on Steam but on Epic. Yeah, then I think that counts, right? Because we could nitpick and say like, oh well, Kenna's on PS5, but I think usually when you say exclusive, it's delineation between like console and PC. So I think you earn a half point for that for sure.
Okay, a half point for that. Wonderful. We'll see if it matters. My third prediction was probably my most fire prediction of all. I guessed that an indie game would win Game of the Year. Ooh. And It Takes Two took Game of the Year this year.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's a point.
I mean, I think it's a point too, but I think indie is such an amorphous thing. Like that game's published by EA. So it
is published by EA, but
so it's a little like Yeah.
It is a smaller studio. I was thinking kind of along the lines of, like, Hades got so
Yeah.
many nominations, and
Yeah.
so we brought that up in comparison, and so,
Yeah.
like, Hades versus, like, you know, like, what would have been Resident Evil, which is, like, a massive Capcom game that, you know, probably has a hell of a lot more money thrown into it and
Totally.
people
I think
working,
that
so
like what people call indies these days is like maybe needs to be redefined, but based on what is considered an indie, I think you're right. So
Okay.
yeah, I think you got it.
Okay, well, even if we count that as a half point, it amounts to the same thing because my next guess was also absolutely fire. And I guess that Skyrim would have a 10th year anniversary because
Because
it
it's
was
Skyrim.
10 years in 2021. And I said it would have a PS5 update.
Mm-hmm.
And Skyrim 10th year anniversary edition did indeed come out on November 10th with enhanced graphics. It added some quest lines, specifically a fishing one, which everybody loves. I got some new weapons. And so it came out on PS5 with an upgrade. It was also on Xbox and Steam and
Yep.
everything, but we did get the 10th year anniversary. My favorite part of this after looking into it is Bethesda has hilariously called this the most definitive version of Skyrim to date.
Yeah, to
And
date.
I love that, detail to date, as in like, we're not fucking done, guys. There's gonna be more.
Yeah, wait till the PS6 comes out and Skyrim's coming on there too. Don't you worry.
Exactly.
Nice. That's a great prediction, Kate. That's a great prediction. Well done.
I love my anniversaries. So that at least puts me, if we've given me 2 half points, that puts me at 2. If we've given me 2.5 points, that puts me at 2.5. And regardless, I win ties. So
yeah, I think that's it.
I can fail on my last prediction, which I did. I said Persona 5 turned 25. They would reveal and announce.
Persona 5.
Okay, sorry, not Persona 5. Persona just in general turned 25, and they would reveal and announce Persona 6, and specifically, it would be purple, which was an important call out for my guess. Atlas did say that they would show us a lot of things for their 25th anniversary and proceeded to show us nothing. So that is 0 points.
0 points. But congratulations on your victory.
Thank
You're right. I think you won anyway, but if not, I screwed myself over by saying I lose the tiebreaker. So yeah. Interesting. Okay, so what game do I have to play this year? I'm very interested.
I actually wanted to be kind of kind on this one, and I wanted to pick a game I think you'd enjoy because that's more fun. I don't want you to play something you don't like.
Yeah.
So I have 2 choices for you, and you may select one.
Okay.
Either A, you have to return to Hollow Knight.
Okay.
And play a little more because you were enjoying it as your PS Plus game. And
I did enjoy it. Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Fell off. Or B, and this is something for both of us. It's something I want to do regardless. But you have the option to accept. And I want to challenge both of us to get back into Disco Elysium because it is a phenomenal game. And we both just kind of felt like, you know, we didn't have time for it. And it's a very demanding game.
Yeah.
It's very dense, but I think it's an absolute work of art. And I'm challenging myself to get back into Disco. So you can either accept the gauntlet or as a consolation prize, you can get into some Hollow Knight.
Oh man, you know what? I think we got to do the Disco Elysium thing because I mean we deserve to give that game a second shot after how excited we were for it. And it's not that I didn't like it. It's not that it wasn't a great. I mean, I've never seen a game written like that level of detail before. It was just so, like you said, so dense. But I think over this year we can do that, and I'd love to do a spoiler cast on it and compare our experience. So let's go for that one. Let's lock it in.
All right, the challenge is back on. We're both big winners of this quiz because we're both playing Disco Elysium.
We're both big winners. And just for curiosity's sake, Kate, I'll tell you what I was going to give to you if I would have won.
Okay. Yes.
I was gonna suggest you play Shovel Knight.
Oh,
because
okay.
I really love that game, and I think it's just an excellent indie that came out. So
you know what?
I would have picked that for you.
To my failing, I own Shovel Knight on the Switch. And I bought it to play, actually, when I went to England last time, I bought Shovel Knight in preparation to play on the plane. And I did play it on the plane, and I was enjoying it. And then I never played it again. So
yeah, it's like me with Hollow Knight. It's the same experience, just reversed.
All right, well, maybe for fun, on top of Disco, if we get some extra time, you can play some Hollow Knight. I'll play Shovel Knight. If there's any other good night games out there, let us know.
Okay, let us know. All right. Well, I think it's time to get into the fun part of the show, Kate, which is our predictions for this year, which I'm very excited.
Because I've been having a horrible time with everything else. So if we can get onto the fun part, that's great.
Oh my God. I hope our listeners are having more fun than you've had. Just before we get to our predictions though, Kate, we put out a call on Twitter, and you guys should all go follow us if you don't already at CNS Pod over there. But we did have a reply from our friends over at the Plastic Hearts podcast when we put out we were looking for community predictions just for this upcoming year. And they predicted that they think we'll see The Last of Us PS5 remake this year. And they'd like to see it coincide with the HBO series. And I think that's a great prediction because it seems like they'd want to tie those together. Side note, I'm really excited to watch that HBO series. I cannot wait.
Oh, hell yeah.
Wait for
absolutely.
that. So anyway, let's get into our predictions for the year. I got to go first on that. Do you want to start us off with your predictions for the year?
Sure, I'll start us off. And like we said, I think we're doing the same format, just kind of 5 predictions. We're going to point some up at the end, maybe do the same bet for next year.
I think we have to. I think we have to stick the bet.
It's a ton of fun. Exactly. So I'll start us off. I went with a super safe one. I think it's guaranteed at this point already. And I guess that Elden Ring is going to win Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Not even specifically my Game of the Year, which I will also bet on that if we want. But at the proper Game Awards end of the year, Elden Ring's taking it.
Nice. Okay. You know what? That's a good prediction though, because there's a lot of stuff that comes out and I mean, it's not like there's ever a clear-cut winner, right? There's never a clear-cut winner. Okay. That's a good prediction. And for my first one, I'd like to build off of that because I have this is maybe one of my spicier ones, but it just relates so well that I'm going to throw it out now. So my prediction is that God of War, Horizon, and Elden Ring will all have very successful releases in 2022, but none of them will win Game of the Year.
Oh, okay. That is spicier because those are definitely 3 that will be nominated.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Almost guaranteed they'll be up.
Absolutely.
For it.
And I just thought like, hey, Horizon and Elden Ring have kind of the curse of the start of the year where, not that they're going to get forgotten because they're obviously humongous games, but I don't think that ever really helps. And
sometimes you get a buff being later because you're fresher in people's memories.
And then, and the other part of it, I just think that I'm expecting maybe a bigger year from Nintendo, Breath of the Wild 2 or like a new Mario game or something. They could come out and those are always going to be on the list as well for Game of the Year. And then there's also just going to be a lot of unexpected games, I think, because so many things have been delayed or like not even just delays, but also I bet you there's a lot of companies that just haven't announced projects that were meaning to come out last year and were just, pushed back a little bit because of the pandemic. So I think it's going to be a pretty big year in general. And just because we know about those 3 big games doesn't mean there's not going to be anything else big. And so I'm just playing the odds.
Okay, I think you're wrong, but I like your guess, and I agree completely that 2022 I think is going to be a fantastic year for games. So I'm excited to see some more, surprises show up for end of the year, but I just think these are so big, and like if I didn't give it Elden Ring, I would say God of War, Horizon have a very good chance. So that's a spicy prediction. I like it. Okay, I'll move on to my second one, and this is kind of funny. This might be cheating, but I'm just holding on to. I'm renewing my Persona 5 prediction.
Okay, no, that's not cheating. You can predict the same thing every year if you want.
Yeah, so Persona 6, I think we sort of I took the L on it for last year, but they're going to announce Persona 6. It's still going to be purple. I've got a very good purple feeling on 6.
I like it.
So we're getting that prediction. It's gonna be purple. If it's not purple, I don't get a point. And
if it's not purple, you don't get a single point.
Oh, maybe I don't get a point. It's the color is important. It is.
I like it.
We know Persona 6 is going to get announced at some point.
Okay.
So I could do that bet forever. But the purple is, I think, what makes it interesting.
Okay. I like it. All right. My next one. Let's see. Let's go with my Nintendo prediction here. I've got 3 PlayStation 1s, 1 Xbox, 1 Nintendo. For myself. And just because you're going for purple makes me think Waluigi. Waluigi makes me think Nintendo. So we're going to go with the Nintendo prediction here. And so mine is going to be that Nintendo will announce a new Fire Emblem game because it's been a couple years since Three Houses. I don't think we're going to see a lot of gameplay. I think it's going to be probably like maybe coming out next year. But what I think is going to happen is
Waluigi's going to be in it. I sure hope so.
Well, that would be amazing. Maybe DLC. But my prediction is going to be that we see a little bit, like maybe it's like a cinematic trailer of the world or some of the characters or whatnot, and it's still going to be like largely medieval and stuff. But I think there's going to be little hints of maybe some futuristic technology in this one. Kind of like changing the setting of Fire Emblem a little bit. And I think this is going to happen just because I feel like there's a little bit of a trend of like modern technology in older settings. Like we see that in Horizon. Horizon 2 is coming out this year. Forspoken's very similar, where like someone from our age now gets transported back. Like I just feel like this is kind of a trend in games, so I feel like that's going to happen with Fire Emblem, and there's going to
That's
be like a
interesting.
little bit of tech in mixed in with the medieval setting.
That could be neat, and Fire Emblem has done, like, time travel-y stuff in the past, so it's not super, um, unconventional for them, and I like that, I think that's kinda neat. I think for Fire Emblem, for me, it would need some kind of, like, something to
Hmm.
switch it up to make me more interested, especially with that Project Triangle supposed to be coming out
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2022, and that game, like, is gonna do the tactics for me more than Fire Emblem will, so I'd like to see them switch it up, so that's a neat prediction. I will also kinda go with my Nintendo-y one, just to keep that rolling. So, I always love my anniversary predictions, and of course, I check this out. So it's a good year for anniversaries, in 2022. Metal Gear turns 35.
Yeah, that's a big
Mortal
one.
Kombat, it is a big one. Mortal Kombat turns 30. Final Fantasy Tactics turns 25. Which is a show favorite. But also turning 25, and the game I think will get some kind of remaster is GoldenEye.
I thought we just saw a rumor about that. I think, yeah, that's a good
Did
one.
we?
I think
I
so,
well,
but yeah.
at least at the time of writing my predictions, I had not seen that, but
I
I've
think it's
been
not a rumor. I think it's like someone found a trophy list or something like that for Xbox
oh,
or PlayStation Online, and so now there's like speculation. But yeah,
interesting, interesting. Well, it is turning 25 this year, and GoldenEye is such a massive game for people's childhoods. You can remember all those times you had your buddies over and you just sat and played GoldenEye for 17 hours, and by the end you were
hmm,
just slapping each other, and
slappers. Yeah,
you're just playing slappers. And so I think what a great game to bring back for some couch co-op.
nice. Now, do you want to? Do you want to? I feel like I've got I don't know if you want to add this to your prediction or not, but do you think it's going to be
Okay.
like a straight up remake, or are they going to do like a remaster similar to like the Blue Point Dark Souls or Demon Souls?
I did write remaster, so I think they're gonna add in maybe some more game modes, maybe some more characters. I think they'll add a little bit to it, but I
Hmm.
think it's gonna be very much they want to preserve what GoldenEye was like. I think
Gotcha.
it's gonna be janky still and intentionally kind of shit in a lot of ways
Yeah.
because they want it to be nostalgic.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. I hope
Mhm.
that comes out because I'd like to play that.
Yes.
Okay, my next one. My next one. Um, we've seen a lot of studio acquisitions the last few years. There
Yep.
always seems to be one of us predicting something like this. I'm going to make a prediction that PlayStation will acquire 3 more studios throughout this year. And they can be
Okay.
either big or small. Like, I'm not saying it's always like Blue Point, but they just acquired that other small one that's like helping with environments in Horizon or something like that. Do you
Oh, like
remember
the one
that?
in God of War.
The one
Yeah.
in God of War, yeah,
Um,
like they might, 2 of them or 3 of them all might be smaller ones like to assist like that, rather than
okay.
like big studios. But they're gonna acquire 3 studios, and I'm gonna put a
Hmm.
prediction that one of them will be Contact Entertainment, which is the VR studio that made Firewall Zero Hour, which is probably one of the more successful shooters on PSVR. And I just think with PSVR 2 being announced, they're going to want to, maybe make a big deal about getting a nice VR studio to make some exclusives for that. So I think it'll be Contact Entertainment with, maybe a sequel to or a Firewall Zero Hour. But I think that'll be at least one of the 3.
Okay, interesting. I like that. I like getting a little bit of. We don't touch on VR very much on the show, so it's nice to get a little bit of VR coverage. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay, my penultimate prediction, and this is kind of where I've just sort of gone into the weird zone here. But you got to throw out a couple weird ones, and I think that Joseph Ferris, after winning It Takes Two, is going to be really motivated to make something, just let his imagination run totally wild. And I think he's gonna go full Kojima on us. And at the Game Awards this year, he is going to show off, he's gonna unveil the wildest, weirdest couch co-op game you've ever seen. And it's gonna be akin to, like, you remember when Death Stranding trailers came out and
Mm-hmm.
everyone you saw, it was just like you understood it less
Yeah,
every time you
yeah,
saw something about it? I
yeah.
think Joseph Fair is gonna have like a wild, weird as fuck game that is gonna get shown off
Interesting.
at the Game Awards.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. The Game Awards, that's a great prediction too, because he always
At the
is
Game
so
Awards.
tied to the Game Awards
Exactly. So I think
yeah.
that's where it's gonna be unveiled. It's still gonna be couch co-op because he excels at that. He's kind of, sort of redefined that genre for himself, but, the prediction is that it's gonna be fucking weird.
I like it. I like it. Out of all the ones we've had so far, that might be the one I hope comes true the most, just because I love what he makes. And yeah, awesome. All right. I'm going to save my Xbox prediction for last because it is my craziest one. And I'm going to do my last PlayStation prediction here. Now, I believe the Last of Us TV show is going to be a complete hit. I have almost no doubt in my mind, just based on the cast and the fact that it's HBO and HBO just makes such quality shows. But my prediction is that the show will be very quickly confirmed for a second season. After it comes out, gets great reviews, and the second season will I don't know if it'll be confirmed, but it'll be rumored that the second season will focus on Joel's story before the outbreak.
I would love to see that. That would be probably like my guess. My ask. If I could ask anything to be shown to us from that universe, and maybe that'll change when I play 2, but based off of my experience with 1, I want to see Joel's backstory so much.
Right. So I think that a lot of people want to see that, and I feel like the reason I think it might happen in a TV show is because I don't think there's how would you make a Last of Us game around like that world before the zombie outbreak? You'd just be living a normal life as Joel. But I think that there's room in a TV series to do to explore like who he is a little bit more and what made him who he is before this whole thing happened.
Yeah, I would love to, and then you could follow that up with like, the time gap that happens in the first game. I would love to see that as well. Like, that would be amazing. And so to juxtapose those two, it would be kind of similar to how the game kind of does that time jump. So we could have the time jump of the blanks that the game doesn't do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That would be nice. Okay, yours is the one I want most to happen now.
Okay.
Your winning predictions. My last one is kind of small, but I think it's kind of funny. So PS5, I think, will get a Ragnarok edition for the PS5. I think that's going to be like the
you mean like the plates?
Yeah, I think the actual console is going to get a like you can buy a PS5 Ragnarok and it's going to have like some cool plates on them.
Gotcha.
But I don't think they're going to sell the plates separately. I think they're just going to be buy the console. They're not going to sell the plates. And so I'm going to have to sit and consider, is it worth buying plates on eBay for $200 because I'm really going to want them.
Yeah. Nice. So, okay. That's cool. That's an interesting one too, because it makes so much sense for them to sell the plates separately that maybe they won't.
Right. Exactly. Like it makes so much sense to sell the plates differently, but I could really see them not doing it because they're like, just buy the console.
Yeah. That's interesting because it's going to come down to like, are they making enough consoles now? Because if they're still short on making PS5s, it's interesting that they would do like not release the panels separate, but I mean, yeah, interesting. Okay, I hope you're wrong on that because I'd probably buy the panels, but I'm not gonna buy a whole console.
Well, that's the second part of my prediction, right? Is I think I'm really gonna want those Ragnarok panels, but if they're hard to get, so we'll see.
Okay, all right. So my last prediction, fittingly for our PlayStation show, is about Xbox, but I had to save this one for last just because I just love it so much, and I think it fits together so well. So stick with me here. I think that now that Halo's out, now that Forza's out, we've kind of, we got a few things coming up for Xbox, and one of those is Fable. And I think that Fable will be Xbox's big marketing push this year in terms of what's exclusive for them, just because it's a legacy franchise. It's one of the reasons to own an Xbox back in the day. And people really like Fable. It's already been known that they're working on the new one. So I think we're going to see more of that this year.
Okay.
Xbox also really leans into memes online. They're very active on like their social media, like posting funny things, talking about Game Pass, kind of memeing around with people. And one of the things they did as a meme this year was the Xbox mini fridge. Which was hilarious. Like, I can't believe that was real. I totally thought that was a joke, but they actually made it. And you can actually buy an Xbox mini fridge. And so I was thinking, like, how can I get Fable into something as crazy as that? And then it dawned on me, Kate. Part of the marketing for Fable will be, hey, not only is Fable coming out, but that Xbox mini fridge that you bought last year, it needs some drinks in there, like you need some beer. And so my prediction is that part of Fable's marketing push will be, because Fable is like medieval and has taverns and stuff, that there will be a line of Fable ales that you can
Fable
buy
ales.
to go in your Xbox mini fridge. And that'll be like part of the whole memification, like marketing for Xbox. I think people will go crazy for it, and you'll be able to drink like Fable beer while you play the new Fable game.
I absolutely adore that. I think that's wonderful. And I think if you're right, regardless of if you win the contest, if you're right and Fable ales come out, I'm buying some. I'll bring them over and we can have some Fable ale, because that is fantastic.
So there's probably like no chance in hell that that's going to happen, but you know, it would be really fun if it did. So
also, I could see them putting out a drink. I don't know if they'd put out an alcoholic drink, just because that sort of alienates like a lot of the younger audience.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there was like some like sexual implications in Fable. I think it might have been game marketing towards kids still, but like it did have some adult content, if I remember correctly. Like I think it was implied that you could like sleep with your wife and or like other people in the town or something if you went down that route. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for Fable.
Yeah, and I'm just looking, like, I think the game might be, I don't know what the ESRB rating for Fable was, but I could easily see like the new one being in rated M or whatever, 17 plus, just because of like the themes. So if it's rated 17 plus, I mean, technically the kids shouldn't be playing it. So then it would be okay to release beer, but I know what you mean.
Right. I think technically, especially it's an American company, right? So technically even 17, they're a few years off of having a couple of drinks.
Well,
but
true,
I say, don't let that ruin your dreams, Fable. Make your Fable ale. And we will buy some, guaranteed.
I love it. Okay, we'll lock them in. We'll write these down, and I can't wait to come back this time next year and see which of us wins. Hopefully, we get at least a couple of these right, because we got some good ones.
Yeah,
I like it.
We got some good ones.
All right. Well, I think it's time to end the show off, Kate. We've got listener mail, as we always do at the end. Although I say always, we've really skipped it at the end of the year last year a few times. We've had some crazy stuff going on, but we are back to listener mail now. And so our listener mail comes this week from Ashley, who's I'm looking at right now, unpacking boxes in our living room. And she sent this one in a while ago. And she says, if you could be a villain in a video game universe, which villain would be best to be? So thanks for the question, dear. She's laughing in the background. All
Wonderful.
Right. You want to take it first, Kate, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, this is kind of a good one. This is one of those ones that's like you think of 30 villains off the top of your head that are really cool, and then you think about them, you're like, oh, that's a shitty world to live in, or like I wouldn't do that very well. I would feel very uncomfortable not having a shower every day and being in this horrible universe. And so I kind of thought about it, and I thought, you know, who would be the best villain to be? And bear with me. Waluigi is who I would pick to be.
Why have we talked about Waluigi so much this episode? What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. This is not only is Persona 6 purple, the whole year is purple, and it's the year of Waluigi. But he, first of all, has such a aerodynamic and wonderful body that you'd get to inhabit. Like, think of all the things. Like, I go to the grocery store, and I'm 5'2". I've officially measured myself. I'm 5'2". There are times where there's certain things on my grocery store, my route that I do when I make my list, and I know that I cannot acquire them on my own. There are certain things that when I go to the store, I know exactly I'm getting someone to help grab them down from the shelf for me. And so if I was Waluigi, first of all, that would never be a problem. I would be able to grab all of my groceries at all times. And
from down the aisle too. You could reach like halfway down the aisle, probably.
Exactly. It would cut my shopping time in half minimum. But also, he's not really a bad guy. I don't think Waluigi is the villain of any particular game. He's the villain, but he's never really in trouble. There's no heroes coming to beat you up. He lives a very chill life, and all he does is he just gets invited to do fun stuff. He's like, you want to play tennis this weekend? Absolutely. Oh, we're playing golf tomorrow? Got it.
I'm in.
No problem. Oh, we're gonna, play some other sports and get on some volleyball? Absolutely. And he just hangs out. He just gets invited to not everything. It's not in Smash, which is a great failing of the world, but he's just in a lot of fun party games. He gets to go hang out, twirl his beard a little bit. He's great at tennis. He's apparently a very good swimmer. And you just get to hang out and play some games with all your buddies.
Not bad. And you get to wear purple matching Persona 6. And
exactly.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay. That's not bad. I took mine as in a very different way, and I thought about it. You know what? I'm like, if I'm going to be a villain, I'm just going to be a bad dude, and I'm going to I would be Frank Fontaine from BioShock, Because
Oh,
I
he's a
think
bad
he's a
dude.
bad dude, and but he's cool, right? Like I get to do the whole "would you
Cool.
kindly" thing. I think that I would love to have the ability to kind of be in control of Rapture down there under the water and make it into my own thing. Hopefully, not as crazy and full of as many kind of distorted people as it is in the game. But I think that being like the king of Rapture down there under the sea, and being like so manipulative, being able to like not like manipulate for bad. Maybe I can manipulate people for good stuff, like reverse psychology. Don't eat that junk food. Don't take those stimulation needles and give yourself these weird powers, like maybe I could be like an anti-hero down there under the sea as Frank
Right.
Fontaine. I think it'd be cool.
Right. I like that. Good luck when the splicers show up.
Yeah.
So good luck on that one. But other than that, I think that is a really fun answer. And I hope you're not claustrophobic, because Rapture would not be a good place for that.
No, but I mean, I'd get used to it. He's probably been down there for a while, right? So I think eventually you get over it. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, Rapture, that's a cool place. It's a cool place.
Rapture is a cool place. And you'd pick him over, well, maybe this is spoilers, but there's a couple other picks in Rapture. But
I mean, I went back and forth a little bit, but let's not spoil BioShock for our lovely listenership.
No, it is a wonderful game. Go play BioShock. If there's anything you've learned from this episode, go play BioShock.
Play BioShock and Cuphead. That's what you've learned.
And Cuphead, yes.
All right. Well, I think that's going to close us out for the show today, Kate. Thank you for joining me for this first episode of 2022. It's been a blast, and I'm looking forward to making more great episodes all throughout the year. You can find us every single Monday, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or wherever you find us on or I shouldn't say wherever. We're just on one YouTube channel, which you can find in the links below the show. Of course, we appreciate all the support everyone gives us. Please go do that Spotify rating that we mentioned at the top of the show. Subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. And we will be back next week for the first episode of the Circles and Squares news report of 2022, which is going to be a big one because we have to discuss the PSVR 2 news. So look forward to that next week. Again, if you want to send in listener mail like Ashley did and be cool like her, we love to read what you guys send in. We love stories, questions, would you rather things, whatever you want to send us, we're happy to answer it on the show. And that is circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. So please do that. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Or no, not 2 weeks. 1 week. Okay. That's it. God, first one of the year. We're rusty. Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.